This is Fat to Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Hello there. Welcome back to the Confidence Chronicles. I hope you're having a great week so far, and I'm glad you're here today. So this episode is part 2 of a 3-part series on healing your relationship with food and your body. If you missed last week's episode, number 78, we talked about breaking the overeating cycle and why willpower isn't the answer or the long-term solution. I invite you to go back and give that one a listen if you haven't yet. Okay. But today we're talking about the next piece, and that is building self-trust. And then next week, we'll wrap up with part 3, all about body freedom and what it means to feel free in your body at any time and at any size. So I hope you will come back for that one. And if you're thinking some version of, Amy, how the heck am I supposed to trust myself? Like, I've never done that before. Or how am I supposed to trust myself when I've spent years not doing that? You're not alone, okay? That's exactly where we're going to start with this episode today. Because here's the thing. After years or even decades of following plans, so following meal plans, following different programs, tracking points, tracking macros, tracking whatever, and overriding your body, meaning just not listening to your body, not paying attention to your physical hunger cues, not listening to the signals your body is sending. After decades of all of that, it is no wonder self-trust feels out of reach. It makes a lot of sense. And so I'd like to start with just cut yourself some slack, okay? Have some understanding for the fact that you've possibly been following someone else's rules for a really long time. And I get it. I was too. You know, I've shared before, I was following diets for most of my life. I've done everything under the sun. And I can remember some really harmful diets that I was on where listening to your body, I mean, what was that? Who knew how to listen to their bodies? There was never, that concept was never talked about or ever taught. I remember one diet I was on, they had you drinking this juice. I mean, I almost passed out. My husband, I was married at the time. And I remember Garrett saying, "What? No, like, you're not doing this anymore. What the heck?" Like, it was making me sick. So when we think about the things that we've done to ourselves in order to lose weight, yeah, okay, like, I know, I get it. I've been there too. But I do want to invite all of us to just cut ourselves some slack, okay? Because today today we're exploring how to begin trusting yourself again. Not someday, but now, today, as you're listening to this episode. Before we dig into rebuilding self-trust, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about why we lose self-trust. And I want to highlight the effect that diet culture has on this. And it looks like this. So when we're knee deep or head deep, full body deep, all the way in, when we are in diet culture, we're taught to obey external rules. Think about it. Think of any plan or program that you followed, right? And hunger, so physical hunger, becomes something to fight, not to follow. It's almost a bad thing if you're hungry, right? And also, shame becomes the motivator, not care. And I want to share a quick little story here because this has come up several times throughout coaching when I'm working with women one-on-one. People are so used to shaming themselves for, like, using shame as a motivator, right? Like beating themselves up and thinking that that's what they're supposed to be doing, when they have a misstep or when they fall or when they make a mistake or they overeat or whatever. We beat ourselves up. And again, I know I was there too. I remember this all too well. I used to do the same thing. And it in the beginning, it becomes very challenging to not do that because we're so used to operating in that way where we beat ourselves up or we think that we need to shame ourselves into doing better. But guess what? It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. We don't want to keep doing that, okay? Because that is just continuing to erode any kind of self-trust, okay? And here's the other thing that I find really fascinating when we're talking about self-trust. I don't think any human being is born doubting themselves. I think I said in several episodes ago, I don't think anybody is born hating their body. Yeah, think about this. Is anybody actually born doubting themselves? I- It's kind of a learned behavior or a learned thought pattern, self-doubt, right? And when it comes to specifically diet culture, one of the greatest misconceptions we've been sold is that the answer to our habits with food is outside of us, that we need their plans, their rules, their products, that we can't be trusted, but they can. I mean, isn't that fascinating when you think about it? And whether that message was intentional or not, we may never know. We can guess, but we won't know for fact. And that's not the point here, okay? The point is that that messaging has kept us disconnected from our hunger, from our body, from our intuition and our power. And most of all, from our trust in ourselves. So here's the thing. If you've been struggling to trust yourself with food, kind of makes sense when we talk about this, right? It's almost like you were taught not to trust yourself. Maybe that's driving the multi-billion-dollar diet industry. I don't know. Let me not go on to a conspiracy theory here, okay? But it really does. I get very frustrated when I think about it because when I think of the years spent on different diets and different programs and being told what to eat, when to eat, how to eat, what supplements to take, all that stuff, never once was there well, what is your body saying? How does your body feel about this? What does your hunger sound like, Amy? Those questions were never asked. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? So, all right, we're just going to leave that there. Now we have a better understanding on, why we lose self-trust to begin with, right? Okay. So what the heck is self-trust? Like what even is it? And so before we dive into the details of rebuilding it, I want to share something I've been experimenting with this month, okay, in July 2025. I may have shared this before, I can't remember, but it fits here, okay? It fits with today's topic. For the month of July, I decided to take a break from sugar. I decided to omit sweet treats from my diet. When I say diet, I mean the way that I'm eating, not toxic diet culture. Okay. Two different things. But I decided to omit refined processed sugar, specifically sweet treats, and not from a place of control or punishment or shame or anger or anything like that, but from a place of curiosity and care. And I will tell you, so I'm recording this on July 21st. Okay. So it's been 21 days without a sweet treat. And you know what? It's going really well. Like it's going really well. And it is absolutely blowing my mind because I have done this in the past where I've omitted sugar for a period of time. but it's never been this easy. And, I think I've been thinking about this a lot over the last few weeks, and because it's been so easy this time. And I know that sweet treats have always been my go-to, right? When I was deep in the throes of binge eating and stress eating, I would always gravitate towards cake. Y'all know my story about buttercream by now, probably. Cake and frosting and cookies and brownies and chocolate and like ice cream and all that stuff, right? I've always been a sweets person, right? I enjoy the sweets. And I mean, I even remember, I'm going to just share this quick story with you. Back in, 2017, I think, I was watching a webinar and it was about, like giving up flour and sugar. And I remember watching it and feeling absolute panic at the thought of giving up sugar, like forever. So much so that it made me cry. I was like, there's no way. I couldn't never have a cupcake again. And I just remember sitting in my home office at the time, like seriously panicked over the thought of never having a cupcake again. I mean, I can look back at it now and laugh, but that was a real feeling. That was a real fear at the time. And that's because I still had, a pretty strong connection to the sweet treats. But what's just so fascinating right now, present day, is that I don't feel restricted. There's no thoughts of, oh, I can't wait till August 1st so I can have a Sunday. Like there's that used to happen, right? Like there's none of that. So I don't feel restricted. I'm not white knuckling it at all. And like I'm just not having the usual urge to eat a sweet treat. Like I even just a few years ago, I'm like, okay, every Saturday I have a sweet treat. Like that was my thing. And that's fine. And I want to be very clear here. Okay. I'm not opposed to sweet treats. I'm not anti-sugar. Okay. Not at all. Again, we're talking about self-trust here. Okay, friends. You I'm not going to sit here and talk about self-trust and then tell you shouldn't eat sugar. Like that just doesn't make any sense, right? So that's not what this is about. I have several reasons that I wanted to experiment with this for the month of July. Primarily, number one, I wanted to see if I feel better. If I want to see if my body feels better without sugar. And that is because there were some extra indulgences in the month of June with the kids' birthdays and going up to Buffalo and having a Paula's donut and things like that. I was a little sugared out. So I wanted to give my body kind of like a chance to, I don't know, flush it out, whatever. So that was the one reason. I just want to feel physically better. And I know my body just doesn't, I don't know if it doesn't process sugar in the same way that it used to, but it's not good. If I eat too much sugar, I'm down for days. It doesn't feel good at all. So I just wanted to see if I feel better. And also, I wanted to see if this was going to help move the needle on my 20 pounds, that I'm looking to remove. And it hasn't yet. So, but that's okay. That's okay. That's not the only reason we're doing this. And I think also I wanted to see if I could do it. I wanted to see if I could do it and how I feel about doing it. And so I'm glad I did, because I'm realizing like, oh my goodness, this has actually become easy. And like, I don't know that I've ever been able to say that about omitting sugar. And that really is a testament to the work that I've done on myself. And let me just share, I know I'm off track a little bit here, but it goes with the topic today, because I do want to share one other little piece about this. So several years ago, I decided to quit drinking as much alcohol. I didn't see the point in it. Like it was like the calories, like it seemed kind of pointless. And I just didn't like the way I felt when I drank and after I drank. And I think perimenopause had a lot to do with this. I was just noticing that my body was reacting very differently, and I felt terrible anytime I drank any kind of alcohol. So I just decided to omit it. And I had no problem removing alcohol, like no problem whatsoever. And in fact, like it's now 2025, July, and the last alcoholic beverage I had was on New Year's, right? Prior to that, I don't even remember, maybe Thanksgiving. Like I drink alcohol very, very rarely. And it was very easy for me to do that, me personally. Okay. I know that's not everybody's, same experience. My point is that I always wished that I could do what I did with alcohol with sweet treats. Like I wished I could have that same kind of experience where I could let it go without it being a problem and then just have it the few times that I wanted to have it, not a big deal. And I've gotten there. Like I've gotten there. I know it. I can feel it. I can tell. This time without the sweet treats has been so different. And I am incredibly, incredibly proud of that. So if you're listening to this and you're like, there is something that you wish you could change when it comes to food, I don't know. Like, I hope that you will let this be an example of what is possible when you do this work for yourself and on yourself. Okay. And so let me get back on track with our episode today. As I was explaining, I don't feel restricted. I'm not white knuckling it. And I'm not having the usual urge to eat something sweet just because it's there because I could, right? This is what self-trust can look like. It's not about forcing a rule. It's about making a conscious choice, listening to how your body feels and honoring that. And this is really important because it's not about always getting it right, but it is about having your own back. And let me use my sugar example to drive this point, because I just shared that in the past, I have given up sugar before, right? I've omitted sugar before. I've had these other moments where I removed sugar for a brief period of time, and it wasn't as easy. I don't know that I've ever gone like an entire month. I mean, maybe, but I would have like a misstep, or I would, go ahead and have something. So it's not about always getting it right. There are going to be moments, there are going to be missteps, but even when those missteps happen, you have your own back. And what that might look like is just saying, so what? All right, this didn't work out well. Let me try again. Let me try something different. There's one thing we have, that I've learned is in being, and going through coaching and training and all this other stuff. And it's the idea of doing an evaluation. It's like, what worked? What didn't? What do I want to do different? That is very much having your own back, being able to look at something without the shame and without, beating yourself up, but just being able to say, okay, did that work? Yes or no? What worked? What didn't? And what do I want to tweak or change moving forward? That's absolutely a way that you can have your own back. And also knowing, believing that your needs matter. Your body is not the enemy, okay? And I think that is so important to really sink into, is the idea that your body, this beautiful vessel that carries you through this life. I mean, just think about that. Your body is supporting you every moment of every single day that you are alive on this planet. I think that was a real shift for me when I kind of sat with that and realized, no matter how mean I was about my body, and I used to say some really nasty things about my body. If you go back to some of the earlier episodes, if you haven't listened to them, I talk about it, right? I mean, I used to be downright toxic to my own body and some of the things that I would say. And then I was, I was introduced to this idea that my body never stops working for me. my lungs continue to help me breathe. My heart continue to pumps, like all that, my legs continue to, walk me through this life. My arms help me open the doors, right? Like my hands, help me turn the knobs. Like just thinking of all the really basic things that I take for granted that my body does for me every day helped me start to shift towards appreciation and realizing that my body is not the enemy. It still shows up and still supports me even when I am terrible towards it. So, what would be different if I just showed it some appreciation? And eventually that led to love. And this is all part of building self trust. And self trust can also look like making choices, very powerful. Okay. Making choices from within instead of reacting to rules. All right. When you start listening to yourself, trusting your intuition, listening to your body, honoring that is as opposed to just doing what someone else says. And I see this a lot in the various weight loss programs out there. And I'll share one that's a little bit more recent. I can't remember the name of it. There was a program, there was a Facebook group that I was in. I mean, this is a couple of years ago. There was a Facebook group that I was in, and there was a meal plan to be followed. And, they were telling you everything to eat. And I just remember seeing the comments from people. They were like, "Oh, I'm not hungry, but I still haven't eaten all the stuff I was supposed to eat, or I still haven't hit my macros or whatnot. What should I do?" That is like a prime example of not trusting yourself. Okay. And I get it. I understand it, because when we're not taught how to listen to ourselves or trust ourselves, and we are instead conditioned to believe that all these programs and gurus and plans know what's best for us, like, of course we're not going to know how to trust ourselves. But once you start to rebuild that self-trust, which is what we're talking about today, then you feel confident, you feel clear on making choices, your own choices from within, from listening to your body and trusting your intuition, as opposed to reacting to the rules of what somebody else has said you should or shouldn't be doing. Okay. And here's just another few examples, like choosing what to eat based on how you feel, not what the app says. Okay. That goes to the story that I just shared. Resting your body instead of forcing a workout. Okay. Story time. So I can remember back in the day when I was going to the gym, and I, absolutely a self-confessed gym rat. I would sometimes go twice a day. And I remember one time getting hurt. We were doing some kind of movement with the shipping rope, like, how they do that and they throw it and everything. And I tripped over it at the gym class and my ankle swelled up. Do you know what I did? I continued working out. I didn't step off. I didn't go home. I didn't ice my ankle. I continued to work out with a swollen ankle. All right. Prime example of not listening, of not trusting, right? Of thinking, I got to get this workout in. I got to get these calories burned. I got to get these steps in. Okay. So, like, an absolute, like, powerful example of self-trust is resting your body instead of, thinking you've got to get this workout in or you've got to get these steps in for the day. It's just so important to honor your physical form. And also, another example is saying, this is a big one. Okay. Saying I'm done, even if food is still on the plate. I know that that is a big struggle. So if you hear me say that and it like brings something up in you, like, it's okay. Hand on heart. Take a deep breath. I share that because that has been an issue for so many of my clients. And I think because so many of us were brought up with the idea of clean your plate. You got to finish everything on your plate. And that still plays a role today. And where, I mean, listen, where that can be really, what's the word I'm looking for? Where that, I guess, where that could be an issue, especially if you're going out to eat, like portions are so large at most restaurants. And if you're thinking, I've got to clean my plate, I have to finish my food, you can see where that's going to have like, a negative impact, right? Especially if you're stuffing yourself to the point where you're over full. Remember the hunger scale, right? We're trying to stay within that -2 to +2. If you believe you got to eat all the food on your plate because that's an old rule and you're going way beyond that +2, +3 on the hunger scale and you're overstuffing your body, that's just not trusting your body, right? And I want to be careful here because I know that that's a really sensitive rule for a lot of people. So if that hits home for you, I'm going to invite you to be gentle with yourself. No one's saying you have to, drop that rule today, but it might just be something that you want to take a gentle look at. And if you would like to, work on that with a coach like me, please, by all means, go ahead and book a connection call and we can talk about that. Because that has been the case for a lot of people. I think it's the case for a lot of Gen Xers, honestly, because I'm trying to think, my parents were never ones who forced us to finish our plate. But I know that that was the case for a lot of people growing up. Like they had to eat everything on their plate. And you certainly didn't throw away food. And I know my mom, like she's still like this. Like my parents, they save their leftovers forever. And I love leftovers. Like I enjoy to eat leftovers. So in fact, I have taco meat in the fridge that I just kind of have for lunch, every day because I eat the same thing pretty much every day. My husband, he is not a leftover person. He doesn't love leftovers. Me, I don't mind them. Okay, how did I get talking about leftovers? Hold on a second. I was saying that this is very common for us Gen Xers that our parents were kind of pushing us to clean our plates. All right. And I think that comes from different generations, especially when you think about the depression and what maybe our parents or our grandparents went through. And for larger families back in the day, I know, my mom came from a large family, lots of kids. And food was one of those things like you ate what you ate your food anyway. Okay, so that can be a thing. Wow, I really went on a tangent there. All right. Here's what I'll say. Self-trust, okay, starts when you stop looking out there for the answer. Okay? When you pause long enough to listen to your body, your cues, your wisdom. Because the solution to your eating habits is not more control, it is reconnection. It's reconnecting with yourself. And that is part of this building self trust. So now let's get to the nitty gritty. Okay. How do we rebuild self trust? Practically speaking, like how do we go about doing this? We want to start small. At least I invite people to start small. Okay. Keep one tiny promise a day, one thing. All right. It could be to drink an extra glass of water. It could be to practice the pause before a snack. It could be to go to bed earlier. Or maybe it's to do 5 minutes of movement. So that's one promise that I've been two. Number one, omitting sugar. Okay. But another promise that I've been working on with myself is to do some form of movement every day, even if it's just 5-10 minutes. Even if I just hop on my stationary bike for 10 minutes, it's doing something. Work on keeping that promise with myself. That's how I'm building the self-trust muscle. And that's another thing. I like to think of self-trust as a muscle to be built. And just like, I don't know about you, but I would not be in shape to go run a marathon tomorrow, right? Like I would have to spend some time, probably several weeks or months, doing some training, doing some conditioning, getting my body ready to run a marathon. I like to think of self-trust the same. I'm not going to turn around tomorrow and be fully trusting of myself if I've spent the last 40 years not knowing what that is or how to do it. Okay. It's going to take time, and it's going to take practice, and it's going to take conditioning to work that new mental, emotional muscle, so to speak. All right. So I think that's just important to keep in the back of your mind. Like, building self-trust is like building a muscle in your body. It's gonna take some time to get used to using it, to get used to practicing it, right? And so that's where keeping one like relatively small promise a day with yourself can be really helpful. I mean, everybody's different, but I know for me, if I was to keep like 10 promises, forget it. Like, I would have myself so overwhelmed, and I'd just be like, F it, right? But one or two feels doable, right? It feels doable. It feels, I don't want to say easy. I guess doable is the best word. It's something that I can commit to and feel good about doing, right? Um, so I would invite you to think of like, what's one thing you can start with, maybe practice that for the week or the month, right? Then pick something else and just continue to build that and strengthen that. And here's what's really important after a slip, because let's face it, we're all going to slip up. It happens. That's reality. And after a slip, we look at it through a different lens. Instead of what's wrong with me, what do we ask? Do you remember it from last episode? What's going on here? What happened? Let's revisit this. Okay. We look at it with curiosity instead of the condemnation. Okay. We look at it through a different lens, one with compassion and curiosity. Very important. And other ways that you can practice this, here's some ideas for you. Keep receipts. I'm laughing because we see this so much on social media. Like, she came with the receipts. I mean, do this for yourself, okay? Keep the receipts, write them down, write down daily the ways that you showed up for yourself. I mean, you can write it down or you can keep a mental note, like whatever works for you, right? I'm not going to tell you how to do this, but keep some receipts for yourself so that you can take a look. Listen, it is so easy for us to be like, oh, I didn't do it today, or I didn't do enough, or I screwed up, or whatever, as opposed to like really looking and reflecting and being like, oh, I did that. Oh, and I did that too. Oh, fascinating. Sometimes we surprise ourselves because we don't realize everything that we accomplished, right? In a day or in a week or in a month. So keep those receipts. Keep the receipts of how you're showing up for yourself and building the self-trust muscle, strengthening this self-trust muscle for you. All right. Really helpful. And then when it comes to food, if you have a binge or an overeat or a stress or emotional eat, okay, or anything happens, anything at all that maybe you weren't prepared for or weren't expecting, or something happened that you didn't want to happen, all right, speak kindly to yourself. I'm learning. I'm not a failure. We're so hard on ourselves. And listen, you know what? Even after all the work that I've done on myself through my own coaching journey and becoming a coach, there are absolutely still times that I beat myself up over things. And I have to remind myself, like, Amy, this is an old pattern. This is an old habit. We're not going to do this anymore, right? We don't treat ourselves this way. I think I shared, this is another fun example. These just pop up in my head, and so I just run with it when they come up. There was, I may have shared this before, but it's worth repeating. So this was several years ago, and I had a client. I knew I was meeting with a client, and I meet with all my clients either over the phone or on Zoom, usually on Zoom, especially after the pandemic. Everybody knows how to use Zoom now. believe it or not, before the pandemic, like not everybody used Zoom. So I used to coach on the phone. Anyway, so I knew I had a client and she was on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, right? So there was a time difference and I had screwed up the time. So I was out walking the dog at the park. You might remember this. I was out walking the dog at the park and she had messaged me and said, "Hey, are we meeting today?" And I was just like, oh, like I had messed up the time, right? And so I got, at the time we had, just Scarlett. Now we have Scarlett and Ruby. So I gathered up Scarlett and I'm like, we got to go home. And I got her in the car and I'm, just about ready to pull out of the parking lot and drive home. And I just started like berating myself. Like, what is wrong with you? How could you do this? This is so unprofessional. Just really giving myself a hard time for missing my client's session. And I get it. It's not very professional. Okay. I understand that. But I stopped myself midstream of nastiness. And I said, whoa, 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 whoa. Is this how we talk to ourselves? Like, this is me talking to me. Okay. Is this how we talk to ourselves? Is this how I'm going to talk to myself now? Is this what would my client think if she heard me talking to myself this way, right? So I immediately changed the direction, changed my tone, and I just said like, "Okay, you screwed up. You made a mistake. Number 1, it's not the end of the world. Number 2, you're going to make it up to your client. It's going to be the best session ever." It's always the best session ever. Anyway, um, so I'm going to make it up to her. We're going to have her session. And I don't need to be harsh with myself. Okay. Have some compassion. What would I tell my client who made this mistake? I mean, I would be like, no big deal. Like, let me know when you're ready, right? It's fine. I work with the most amazing people. So like, they're all really cool and kind. And um, I like, I, I'm very specific with who I work with. Okay. But it's like, what would I say to her as far as like how to treat yourself, right? Like, I got to treat myself with that same kind of kindness and compassion. And so, long story short, too late. I know. I changed my tone with myself and I was just like, you know what? You made a mistake. You're human. It happens. Let's just not repeat this regularly. I don't think I've ever missed a client session since that happened, but it was really helpful to change the way that I was talking to myself, right? And just really treating myself like a human being, like I would treat somebody else. Okay? Very, very important. Okay. So that's a practice. Noticing the way that you're talking to yourself. Noticing the way that you're talking about yourself. Because I can remember also in conversations with people, again, way back in the day, where I would be saying something like, I hate my body. I'm so sick of this fat. Like, I just wish I could cut this fat off. It pains me to say those words out loud right now, but that is how I used to talk about myself and about my body. And that is not going to help when it comes to self-trust, building self-trust, right? So you really want to focus on speaking very kindly to yourself no matter what happens or what is happening. Okay. It's just sprinkling in some kindness. It might feel really weird in the beginning, especially if you've been harsh with yourself in the past. But again, this is something that you can practice. Think of it as another muscle that is being built. All right. And remember, self trust isn't built in the mirror. Okay. It's not. It's built in the micro moments, these little moments that we're talking about, like the moment when I realized, oops, I had missed the session. Okay. All right. And then let's talk. I'll try to keep this quick. Let's talk quickly about what happens when you do when you do start trusting yourself, when you start having self-trust. Number 1, there's a lot less second guessing, okay? Because you're trusting yourself, right? That self-doubt is no longer front and center. you will have more consistent habits, okay? Because they're coming from you, number one. And number two, you've been practicing the consistency, right? You've been practicing keeping the promises with yourself. That's building consistency. That's building self-trust, okay? You know that you can count on you. I'm sorry. I used to work at Sears back in the day, and I just flashed to when they used to say, I think it was "You can count on me" or something like that was their slogan. I just flashed back to a moment in time. All right. But yes, you can count on you, and that's important. It was this one time I worked there in high school, and my friend Carrie and I were like, I don't know, I was sitting on some kind of platform and she was wheeling me around, and I was having a "You can count on me" we were having a "You can count on me" parade. And then the CEO of Sears walked by. We were in so much trouble. That just flashed in my head and I'm sharing it. So what the heck? Anyway, all right. The other the other thing that happens when you are building that self-trust, when you start trusting yourself more, there's more peace. You have more peace in your decisions, okay? You feel more at peace with yourself. And I want to just paint this visualization for you for just a minute. So if you're sitting somewhere comfortably, like you're not operating a vehicle or machinery, just, if you can, like, place your hand on your heart. And just imagine this for a minute. Like, imagine walking into a meal without a specific rigid plan, okay? And trusting that you'll figure it out. Also, imagine not panicking after a binge, but instead getting curious with yourself. That's where we're headed, okay? Kind of like in the car when I realized, oh, I'm not being very kind to myself for missing my client's appointment. All right. How do I want to handle this? Peace. It's so much more peaceful. All right. So let me wrap this up now. This has been fun. I've gone on several tangents. Thanks for staying with me. Here's the action step for you. Okay. Optional as always, but maybe helpful. What is one small promise you can keep to yourself today? Not to be perfect, but something to practice trust. And here's a really important piece, okay? Even if self-trust has been unfamiliar for you, okay? You don't have to earn your trust back. Okay. We're not going backwards in time here. You just have to keep showing up. This is like one foot in front of the other. Okay. So even if there is a day that you forget or you don't do it or you mess up or you have a slip or whatever, so what? One foot in front of the other. We keep moving forward. You just keep showing up for yourself. Okay. Because remember, self-trust doesn't start when you feel ready. It's not going to start when you feel ready, okay? It starts when you show up for yourself imperfectly, but consistently. All right. Next week, we're going to dive into the final piece of this 3-part series, which is going to be about body freedom. We are going to explore what it means to feel at home and free in your body without needing to change it first. See you then. Have a great week. Are you ready to break free from stress eating and body shaming? It's time to get fierce. Fat to Fierce is a self-paced program that helps you build a new foundation of strength and balance without the toxic dieting mindset. This non-diet approach focuses on mindful eating, body acceptance, and lasting transformation. It's time to reclaim your power and find peace with food, your body, and yourself. Visit amyenglishcc.com to get started today.